Hey guys, welcome back to the channel with our brand new Icebear Champion build for the Great American Monkey 1000. If you remember in our last video, we were going through and assessing the condition of the swing arm that come with the bike and the bushings and whatnot, and we discovered that we were not happy with it at all, as most weren't with the previous versions of this bike. Even though it was supposed to be a revised setup, turns out it wasn't really any better from what I could tell. In between then and now, I've also gotten quite a few inquiries on the comment section on the videos asking me about different things that I talked about doing but didn't show. So I'm going to jump into that real quick, do a little bit of housekeeping, and bring you guys up to speed, and then we'll get into the main part of this. All right. So back to the housekeeping. Like I mentioned, some of you asked about this. So we're at the rear of the bike now, and I'm going to show you how I tapped into the 12-volt battery source for the taillight. Remember, I'm running that aftermarket Bart Motoco sweet taillight, but because y'all asked, I tore it back apart. I figured I wanted to share it with you. So if you remember, I mentioned that the orange wire throughout the entire bike is a 12-volt battery switched power source. So whenever you turn the key on, that orange wire, no matter where you are within the wiring harness of the bike, is hot. This is the turn signal relay, and I took the path of least resistance. I noticed there was a 12-volt switch wire run into that, so I spliced into it with this blue wire you see here. And essentially what I did, just so you don't think I'm a hack, I cut that all apart. I merged the blue wire in with the orange wire, soldered everything, and then heat shrinked it really well to keep it weather tight. And then over here, this is going to be the plug that runs to your tail light on your bike if it's stock. This is the stock side of the plug. You can see what I've done is I've come around with that blue wire that I tapped into the orange wire. I've run it around and I've pinned it into that plug right there. That gives me the 12-volt battery power that goes to my taillight whenever I turn the key on. What you need to know is there was a yellow wire right here that used to run into that pin of the plug. I removed that from the plug, pinned this blue wire, put it back into that plug, and then the yellow wire, which is your stator, charging stator power, which, as you know, fluctuates with the speed of the motor. That's it right there, not being used. I left the pin on it in case anybody ever wants to reverse this, and then I heat shrinked it shut so it's sealed up from the weather. So this is totally reversible if someone ever desires to do so later. And then moving on to the front, very similar scenario up here. This is your headlight plug. And then you can see right here where I've tapped into another orange wire that was located in the headlight bucket that connected to a black wire. Full disclosure, I don't know what that's doing. I don't know what that controls, what it goes to, but I know it was a 12-volt battery switched orange wire. So I fashioned this little adapter harness that basically has bullet connectors on each end and then branches out into another wire. And I plugged that in line here and here. So in the event that it ever needs to be undone, all you do is unplug that. And then here's that blue wire running down to the headlight plug, which I've pinned into that plug. If you want to undo it, you de-pin it. And then this pink wire right here is your charging coil power that used to run in here and supply the headlight. I, again, pulled it out, left the pin on, and sealed it up with heat shrink. That's how I did it. There's probably a couple other ways to do it, but my goal was to not hack the stock harness, if at all possible, and make it to where it could be put back together. The other request that I've been getting was a lot of people are interested in what this digital speedometer looks like. They're like, hey, show us what that looks like. So figured I'd go ahead and do that real quick as well. Here it's in the off position. Now I've turned the power on. And there you see, I've literally ridden it 1.1 kilometers. You've got on that, you've got a high beam indicator, a blinker, and then I believe something to do with fuel. Okay, there's your blinker. It's blinking fast because I'm still working through my LED light situation. I believe the high beam indicator is not working at the moment because I don't have the headlight plugged in. And then I think the other one is a low fuel light, which is interesting because this doesn't have a fuel gauge or fuel sender set up in it. So anyhow, yeah, that's the gauge cluster. Hope that's what you all hoped it was. It is backlit. You just can't see it because I've got some lights on in here. All right, guys, I snuck another one in on you off camera before we get to the main part of the video. I went ahead and, in keeping with trying to get things off the bike that could possibly break if it falls over, I've added some really tiny LED turn signals on the front up here where the stock ones used to be. So you can't see them right now really because kind of blending in with everything else, but remember I had the Bart Motoco rear tail, which was LED as well. And if you paid close attention on that last shot of the speedometer, you noticed that it was flashing really fast. See that? And the rear is flashing normal. So what I learned is that rear unit that I got from Bart Motoco has a built-in blinker unit already in it. And this is your stock unit. And then this orange one here is an LED specific unit that I purchased off Amazon that's also speed adjustable, which I didn't have to adjust, but I'm going to show you here in a minute. But I'll go ahead and I'm going to drop a link in the description to that for you all as well. And I think I probably could have finagled around with the wiring and kind of wired that blinker unit completely out of the equation and just used the one in the tail light. But it would have been kind of invasive to a wiring harness. I didn't see the point, especially since I found this one. Let me hook that one up real quick and I'll show you how that works. All right, I've got that one plugged in, and as you can see, we're still flashing normal speed in the rear, and now our front also matches very closely, and it gives you a good idea of just how bright these front LED turn signals are as well. So I will put a link to those in the description as well. Those are Amazon specials. They were very easy to hook up. But anyway, back to our regular scheduled program. All right, let's cut right to it and talk about putting the new bushings in this stock swing arm. If you remember, when I tore this apart the last time, we had a large amount of play this way with the stock bushings in there. And I had showed you some aftermarket Delrin bushings that I purchased on eBay, specifically made for these. In that video, there was a link in the description to those. You'll have to go back and watch that if you want to buy those. But anyway, I started tearing into this, and if you remember, you could see you had your stock bushing was here. It was a thinner piece of metal around the outside, a rubber core, and then another metal spacer bushing type thing. Had the same thing on both sides. And, you know, your normal intuition would be, all right, let me just press that out of there coming from this way or vice versa. Well, I learned the hard way that that's not possible, and here's why. Inside of this swing arm, about right here and here, that hole gets smaller, and that is where the end of the bushing stops. And then in the middle, it's almost solid, but there's a smaller hole in there with like a spacer that goes through that's kind of free floating in there. So if you just unpacked all that correctly, you understand there was absolutely no way to push anything from one side to the other or vice versa. The only way the bushings were coming out was this way. Well, there was no way to get a hold of them with anything. So that's when the creative juices started flowing. And if you've done stuff like this before, I'm sure you know what I'm about to tell you to do. What I ended up doing was, in that rubber that went around here, I got a drill bit that was just the right size to fit in between the two pieces of metal, and I carefully drilled holes all the way around, making sure not to go all the way down into the center part. And then lastly, before I did anything else, I got a larger bit that when I put it into the rubber area, it was just enough to kind of chew in to that outer metal piece of the bushing. And I'll tell you why I did that here in just a minute. So if you've done all that correctly, at this point, you can probably grab a hold of that centerpiece with a pair of needle nose or something, and it should pop right out of there. Mine did. Now, the reason I drilled that larger hole was I wanted to start making a cut on that outer metal part of the bushing so that I could get down in there with a chisel or an old screwdriver, something I didn't care about, and basically cut that so I could compress it in enough to where it would pull out. So that's what I did. I basically cut that with I used an old screwdriver and just kind of chiseled my way down, worked it, bent it in a little bit, and eventually it didn't take too long, but it did loosen up and I was able to just pop it out of there. I did the same thing on both sides. And I don't know, maybe that's not the right way to do it, but it worked for me in lieu of not having whatever tool you're supposed to have. So to put the new bushings in, surprisingly, they were a really nice, snug fit. They're not loose. They don't spin in there at all. So all I did was I got them started in there real nice, and I kind of braced up my swing arm, and I took a rubber mallet and literally just tapped them in there. And I knew when they were going to stop. I mean, I knew there was an end point. So I got them both driven in there with my rubber mallet, and we're ready to go. We put this thing back on the bike and see what, if anything, we gained. One thing I will say, I am going to use these cup washer rubber dampener things that came with it, just because I want to see if we can make this work with very minimal modifications. I'm also going to continue to use the bolt that came with it, the swing arm bolt. However, for the final version of this bike, I have bought an OEM Honda CT70 swing arm bolt. So let me get situated here and we'll put this thing back on and we'll see what the results are. All right, here we are. We've got our swing arm bolt. Throw that washer on there. This is gonna go on the other side, your nut and your washer. And then here's those cup washer deals I was telling you about. You're just gonna have to figure out a way to kind of carefully hold them up there while you position this in the frame. Once you get that up there, it might not hurt to get you a small punch to kind of line everything up before you put the bolt in. Okay, I got my small punch, and I am able to get in there and get some alignment on that. And I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and get the bolt started from this side. Maybe. You can see already it's a tight fit compared to what it was when we took it apart. There we go. I'm going to tap that in with my rubber mallet a little bit. And she must be off just a little bit on this other side. we've got our swing arm bolt in, and I barely have any play as it is right now. And that's without even tightening it up. So let me go ahead and throw that together real fast, and we'll see how she looks. All right, we're going to tighten this up real quick. This is a 14 millimeter on this side. The other side is a 13 German torque spec. Okay. Oh, yeah. What you see as movement is me moving the entire bike on the stand and a little bit of flex of the swing arm on these arms. So it is definitely tightened up a lot. There's zero play that I can feel here, which is the desired outcome. I'd say that took care of it. I don't see any reason to do any more to it. All right, we got her throwed back together. I went ahead and I slipped one of our new rear shocks on there just to kind of mock things up a little bit. That's another Bart Moto Co. unit right there. Check them out if you haven't. So I think we achieved our goal here. We managed to tighten up that rear suspension for, I don't remember how much some bushings were. They were 20 bucks or something maybe. Wasn't much. And I'd be happy to ride that thing anywhere over any terrain now and not worry about that pivot point being sloppy like it was. Now, I do have a bit of a confession to make. Throughout the process of this, I thought long and hard and also thought about what I'm doing with the bike and the terrain I'm probably going over, the amount of weight I'm going to be carrying. There's probably a possibility there's going to be some weight coming out the rear on the rack. And I've decided to go with a 2-inch extended swing arm from Bart Moto Co. I've got the 2-inch, I guess it's kept speed is how you call it, black anodized aluminum swing arm in the mail. So the next video that you watch, we're gonna review that and get that installed on there. So in the meantime, if any of you guys with an Icebear Champion are interested in this, this is the latest model swing arm with the upgraded Delrin bushings. Drop a comment down below and I'll make you a deal on it. I probably won't ever use it for anything else, but I'd hate to just sit it on the shelf and have it collect dust when there's nothing wrong with it. So the other big elephant in the room is our tire and wheel setup. So you can see I went with the IRC GP22 tires rather than the other ones I showed previously. And then I do have this one mounted on the 12-inch black aluminum rim from Bart Moto Co. Once again. Those things are a bear to mount on there. I learned those are a 12-ply tire. I figured that out after fighting with it to get it on that rim. So I think that's going to be a pretty tough tire to run across the desert and through all the trails and whatnot out there at Moab. And then I did get my my Cush Drive rear hub assembled with my new rear sprocket, 33 tooth rear, 16 front. And then that is a whole new unit. That's not recycled from my other one because it is different. The other one has a bolt-on sprocket that came with the bike. So if you remember, I talked about when you assemble these, you've got these little recesses or step downs here on the hub. And then you've got the same thing here on the rim. And I said that you could reuse the bolts out of the stock Icebear hub, and I was wrong. That area on the rim is quite a bit thicker than what it is on the steel 10-inch rim halves. So the bolts that come with the Icebear setup are a 25 millimeter long bolt, and I went ahead and I ordered 30 millimeter bolts. And that's an M8 by 125 thread pitch. I would have that put together for you and mount it all back up on the bike today to show you. But unfortunately, my bolt order has not come in yet. I like to order bolts in bulk from a company called Bolt Depot. They were supposed to be here by now, but thanks to our wonderful postal service, they're not. So that's about it for this week. We'll go ahead and wrap it up and talk about what comes next. All right, guys, like I said, that's going to pretty much do it for today. Next video, hopefully we'll have that extended swing arm from Bart Motoco. So we'll get that installed. We'll do a little bit of reviewing on that. And then also, we hope to get this thing back on its feet, back on its wheels. So that means also we'll get that front wheel swapped out to the 12-inch. We'll see how that goes. And then from there, we're going to start moving on up through the front forks into the handlebar and control area. That's where our next biggest mod's going to be. And probably at a minimum in the next video, we'll get that Bart Motoco muffler thrown on there as well. I've got a little surprise for you on that I haven't talked about yet. So I think that's going to do it for this week, guys. As always, thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed, please do so. It doesn't cost you a thing. And we'll see you on the next one.